placed second in the marching band competition for this area. So you will be going to the state. Can you give her a... We got to rejoice with each other when we do things. So will you make a note of that when something happens to you during the week? Will you let me know? And I know you are happy today that you're cross country in. You're going to continue next year? Don't know. Okay. Well, do you know, you guys, you know what's special about this day? You're all dressed up, so must be something special. It's the anniversary of what? The church. And what's special about that? You're here for another year. Okay. And they said that for 145 years. And that's a good thing. But here's the thing, and I'm kind of going to just preach to you this morning. One of the things that I'm really, really thankful for with your class, the confirmation class, is that you said you continue to be a part of this children's service, and that's important because the congregation really likes that. But we also want to make sure that we involve you more in the congregation. So next week is a special day. You know what next week is? It's the fifth Sunday, so it's, the children that will participate. So not only will you do that, but it's also Reformation Sunday. And we're going to ask you if you'll march down like you did at confirmation to make a little more formal service of it. You do that for us? Okay. All right, what's very special about you guys now is that they're looking at you to continue the church. And we say the church belongs to the children. Well, a lot of young people are moving away from the church and saying it's not important anymore. But I think you all come from families that say the church is important. And you're blessed to have that kind of support from home. But we plead with you as we look to you and we say, that's our future. We're going to celebrate a little about the past today in our service. But you are our future. And we look toward the future, and the future looks really shaky right now. And so it's going to take strong people. And I know you guys are all strong women and strong men. And you will perpetuate the church. We look to you to do that. Can you give an amen on that? Amen. Okay. Give him a hand. Chapter of St. Mark, beginning at the 46th verse. As Jesus and his disciples and a large crowd were leaving Jericho, Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, a blind beggar, was sitting by the roadside. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout out and say, "Jesus, son of David, have mercy on me." Many sternly ordered him to be quiet, but he said out even more loudly, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stood still and said, "Call him here." And they called the blind man, saying to him, "Take heart, get up, he is calling you." So throwing off his cloak, he sprang up and came to Jesus. And then Jesus said to him, "What do you want me to do for you?" The blind man said to him, "My teacher, let me see again." And Jesus said to him, "Go, your faith has made you well." Immediately he regained his sight and followed him on the way. Here ends the gospel for the day. Please be seated. If you've been in the church for a number of years, wherever that may be, and there are visitors here today from different churches, if you've been around the churches, you've gone to a number of anniversary services, I would guess. It is those days when we celebrate our beginning and look toward the future. And generally, if you've been to a centennial service, usually it goes by this. Usually there is a guest speaker. Somebody who doesn't know anything about the church at all. Usually from the bishop's office. It's nice to have somebody there strings so they can tell you all about your church. And then normally the service is divided into two parts. One is that we celebrate those saints that went before us that established the church and kept it going. And we talk about them in such very special and romanticized way, as if the forebears before us all got together after each meeting and sang around, held hands, and sung Kumbaya. Not mentioning that most of the time the church is embroiled with various kinds of arguments, cliques, all kinds of things that might not be entirely Christian, but somehow the church survives and is enriched, even if it is dealing with sinful people. And then usually the second part of the message goes into looking at the future. Now we would say, well, we're looking forward to another 145 years, and the future looks bright. But if I was to do that, and have that set up, I think we miss an opportunity to talk about the church as it is and how it is to be enriched. Yes, we are thankful for all those who established this beautiful church and this wonderful congregation. We do owe them a lot. But it was not done without difficulty. It was not done without division. But it survives. And it survives healthy. The future, though, as we look at the future, we're a little perplexed about what might be coming down the pipe. Because so many things have happened. Attendance is waning in all the denominations, in all the churches. The support of the church by the community of the school is falling by the wayside. And those times that we used to have, when I was younger, and maybe some of you were younger, those days of having release time from school to go and have an hour of religious instruction, to have Wednesday night and Saturday morning and Sunday morning reserved for the church, are gone. Instead, now everybody is competing for our time when we spend worshiping our God and celebrating our heritage. The denominations are in free fall. And generally, when they talk about the reasons people come and stay to church, the answer most given is, I need to feel comfortable. There are a lot of explanations about what this is happening. And they say, we did it this way in the past, we did it this way in the past. and it was successful. But you have to be reminded time and time that was yesterday. And in the words of Peaches and Herb, that was yesterday. And yesterday's gone. And we can't even begin to tell how much the pandemic has done to the church. We have obeyed the politicians and done what we're supposed to have done to a certain extent in holding off services. Some still aren't open from it. And I don't think we will ever be able to measure how badly the effect has been. Because the authorities in the church have praised us for making our way through it and having virtual services, having things that we can stream. And they say the world and the church is given to the future of a hybrid church where we mingle meetings face to face and do a lot more on our own, at home, separated, which never was the intent of the church. But a lot of people say now that it's comfortable at home. It's more convenient to watch things or listen to them remotely. And I don't have to dress up. I don't have to get ready for church. I don't have to attend at a certain time. I can do it at my time, at my leisure, and I can do it all by myself. But that's not what the church was intended to be. And so we talk about convenience, about staying by ourselves and being safe. And an immediate response is, we don't really support the church anymore. Talk about trying times. I would want to bring two to your attention and see the similarities that we have with other trying times and listen to the words the leaders spoke at those times. In 796 or 784, Israel, who had risen to a great status among the nations, was conquered by the Babylonians. This people of God, who had made this covenant with Abraham, had established themselves and rose to a great peak in political history when their kings, Saul, David, and Solomon, put Israel into the greatest place it had ever known. And they thought that God had delivered them and made them the special people He had promised Abraham. And Babylon came in and destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed the temple, and in the Jewish thought, the temple is where God dwelt. They destroyed the place that God dwelt. And then they took all of them and transferred them to Babylon. And the psalmist in the Psalm 137 says, by the rivers of Babylon we sat down and we wept. And when we remembered Zion, on the willows there we hung up our hearts, for there our captors asked us for songs, and our tormentors asked us for happiness, saying, sing us the songs of Zion. How can we sing the Lord's song in a foreign land? And today some of us find out or feel that we are in a foreign land. We don't know what to make of what is happening to our country. When some people are saying the FBI needs to come to school board meetings, and our own capital is attacked by its own people. And we say, how do we worship God in this foreign land that we're experiencing? Our country had another very perilous times during the Civil War. And we struggled with what was right and what to do about And these words of Lincoln that I have used many times in our God and country, Lincoln spoke to the people, and he said, the fiery trials which we pass will light us down in honor or dishonor to the latest generation. And no personal significance or insignificance can spare one another of us. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. The occasion is filled high with difficulty, and we must rise to the occasion. And as our case is new, we must think anew, we must act anew, we must disenthrall ourselves, and then we can save our country. We are going through fiery trials right now. Our churches are depleted, and it doesn't seem like we're getting too excited about the necessity of worship, the necessity of being a congregation again. What do we do about it? Todd Bolsinger wrote a book called Canoeing the Mountain, where he talks about Lewis and Clark on their expedition out west at the direction of Thomas Jefferson to find a passage through the north that we could travel by boat. And one thing that Lewis and Clark felt once they crossed the Rocky Mountains is that it wasn't what they expected. They were totally in a foreign land and didn't know what to do in order to have an easy pass from the east to the west. And they had to think anew. We are being challenged now. We are being challenged by our own inactivity and our own seriousness and our own passion for the church. But Bolsinger has some ideas of what you can do as leaders. He talks about 3 characteristics of leaders. And I'm not talking about those that are serving on church councils or any official capacity. When he talks about leaders, he's talking about all of us. Because somehow or other, we in the church, as individuals, have got to find some point of leadership where we make a difference if the church is going to live. First of all, he says leaders have to act. You've got to do something. Just talking about it, and talking about it, and talking about it, and passing it down to the next month will not solve any problems. And we can criticize, but criticizing doesn't get any place either. So if you've got a point to criticize, that's fine. But when you come to criticize, have a solution for it. And know that you can act and do something to make it better. The book of James, we're studying the Bible study on Tuesday. And James says, you show me your acts by your faith, and I'll show you your faith by your acts. Something happens. I was watching the news just yesterday morning. It was interesting. It seemed to fit in with the sermon so well. It was one situation where there was a police intervention. A policeman was standing there and he heard shots, and what did he do? He ran toward where the shots were, even if that endangered his life. And then they showed a picture of a fire. Fire alarm goes off, and the people rush to the danger spot, to the place of risk. And I said, man, I wish that was a church. When we people saw a problem in the church or a discourse or an argument, they ran to it to save it rather than run away or change congregations or just become stale and dormant. Leaders act. And we need a lot of people who find that somewhere in the church they can make it come alive and be a part of it, even if it's worship. Bolsinger says the second aspect of leaders is when faced with opposition and sabotage, they stand firm. I don't know if any of you have seen the film Casablanca. It's a classic. It came out of the 50s. Earned, I think it earned an Oscar for Humphrey Bogart, was it? But anyway, there's a man in there by the name of Lazo. And he's sitting at this American bar in Casablanca, Morocco. And Morocco is a French province that is now occupied by the Nazis in World War II. And there are a lot of people that are French there, and their country is under siege. It's been captured. It's been made a part of the Nazi Empire. And the Germans go to the piano and they sing the German national anthem as a way to shame or humiliate the French. And after they're done with their song, Lazo gets up. He's a Czech militant, but he's fighting for the French cause. And what he does is he goes to the pianist and he asks him to play the French national anthem, and he sings it. And he sings it louder. The Nazis are singing their song, and he overcomes them with his voice, taking great risk. But he believes in what is right, and he's willing to take the risk. Leaders need to stand firm on what is really important in the church. And what is important in the church is that it is a place, first of all, a place of worship. It's not a place of talking about social interaction. It is not supporting what is popular in the social realm. It is worship. And unless we keep worship as the central focus of what we are as an organization, it will continue to deteriorate. We need to make sure we stand fast on salvation by grace and Jesus as the resurrected Christ, the Son of God. And then on the rest of the things, maybe become a little more flexible and invite people in with different ways of understanding and working in worship. Stand fast on the absolutes, but make a little adjustments for those things that are not absolutely critical. The third thing that Bolsinger says is typical of a leader is that they don't act alone. I heard a really disgusting song on my Country and Western channel yesterday. It's Tom T. Hall, Me and Jesus. Probably one of the most irritating songs, but it's so typical of so many people and what they believe. It says, me and Jesus got a good thing going. Me and Jesus, we got it all worked out. Me and Jesus, we got a good thing going. We don't need anybody to tell us what it's about. And too many people in the church have that kind of a philosophy. It's about me and Jesus. No, it's about you operating with other people and caring and loving and carrying the grace and love of God to other people. Jesus can get along very well by himself. But your mission is not to hibernate and to cocoon yourself into some kind of spiritual place of your own. Your task is to spread the word in word and deed. We've got what is it, some thing that we say at every council meeting, the mission statement. Thank you. You're listening. Thank you. And I suggested that we change the mission statement. And the council jumped on me pretty hard for that. And after I looked at it again, it's not a bad mission statement. It's church that serves the countryside. I said, whoa, that's not such a bad one after all. As a matter of fact, it's probably along the lines of what I've been discussing all along. But a church that really does need to serve the countryside and find new ways of operating and making this a light to look up to. We're a little group that met yesterday morning here out on the grounds. One of the bicycle riders had passed away, and the group said that one of the things he did is he always wanted to meet here because it was a place that gave him a sense of refuge, a sense of God's presence. And a number of these bikers have come from time to time, and I've opened the church for them and showed it. They had this memorial for him yesterday. They came out. Then they asked me to say a prayer. And I said, it's reaching out. And people talked about faith. A bicycle group, not knowing me at all, and were very, very open and direct about the questions. But it really was 15 minutes of worship. We've got a good mission statement. A church that serves the countryside, but let's do it. And let's do it extremely well. Again, looking at the words of Lincoln, I'm not worried about the next 145 years. I'm worried about the next 5. And suddenly it dawned on me that it's only a 50-50 chance that I'm going to be around or active in 5 years. And so I thought it was important to give a message that maybe your theme for the next 5 years should be the words of Lincoln. When he talked about the country, finding a new place, a new direction. And he says the fiery trials through which we pass will light us down in history, in honor or dishonor, to the latest generation. And no personal significance or insignificance will spare a one or another of us, because we hold the power and bear the responsibility. If this church or any of the churches are going to survive in this world, in this strange land, you got to understand that it is you that have the power, but also you that have the responsibility of keeping it alive. Amen.